This is wild.
It makes sense.
Cost of living by dollars is so high that it's hard to actually even track the average savings.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cutting into the savings because people have far less to save.
I live this.
But
I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
So you can see the average cost of living has gone from 2014 at about $50,000 a year to around, it looks like $65,000 a year, while the average savings has been declining. So this is actually an interesting point. Where this goes or how this changes, I don't know, but it does show that at least in the past decade, people have not been accumulating savings. They've been burning through savings.
Yes.
Yeah. That is to say that it's like watching, your cell phone is plugged in and you're using it and it is charging, but still dying because you're using more. It's
Yes.
Don't you hate when that happens too? You're like, it's plugged in, but it's like not charging.
Yeah, I've had that issue. The thing with civil wars that no one brings up, and I'm glad you teased this point out of me because it's important, but I would never say it without that intro, is the reason people have civil wars is they provide very good plausible deniability for a variety of things. If you are envious of your wealthier neighbor and you want to take their stuff, civil war. If you're bankrupt and you don't want to pay back your loans, civil war. If you won't get reelected in your district due to leftist competition, civil war. Civil war is just a get out of jail free card for a variety of things that are difficult to deal with. You could say, like, the medical industry is a tapeworm that consumes America, and you could just say civil war. Goodbye, medical industry. Doctors, you train for 3 years, not 10 now. Civil war is in a very cynical sense, is a get out of jail free card for, yes.
Just look.
Yeah, I live. I
made a new graph.
I'm aware.
This is average income compared with the average cost of living by dollars.
Yeah, this is my entire social network.
And this is really something. In 2014, the income was just about what? We're looking at $13,000 above the cost of living, meaning on average, people were saving or had to a certain degree of disposable income. We're at the point now where people are struggling to get by. There's no disposable income. On average, this country is paycheck to paycheck. I can give you a real simple human equation. If the cost of water ever exceeds the wages earned, your society people, it's civil war, period. And this is not a real it's not a real world metric. What I'm saying is, you see those videos we were talking about a couple weeks ago where there's like a lion and a gazelle and they're both drinking from the watering hole and they're like, no, we're not fighting here. Because the lions are like, everybody's got to have water. And the alligators are was it crocodiles they got down there, not alligators?
Yeah.
They'll snatch you up. But the animals will be at the watering hole and it's like truce. Because if at any point there's stress where we cannot get water, we're done. Yeah, we're going to go fight when we're in the plains. But the thing about water is, I was thinking about this because of Flint. The cost of water became so great, people fled. There was an opportunity to go somewhere else. People talk about the three factors that result in revolution or civil war. It's do you have food, do you have security, and I forgot what the last one. Do you know what the three factors were? This came out bigly during the Arab Spring when there were the questions were being asked why all of these countries went and had revolutions. And one of the factors was the cost of food. And I think security/shelter is one of them too. But the cost of food was too high. So people were working really, really hard and they still couldn't afford all of the calories they needed to live. And so they just get to the point where they say, I don't want to die. I need food. Chaos ensues.
Yeah.
The example in Tunisia was, what was the guy's name? Was it Mohamed Bouazizi? I could be getting it wrong. He was a fruit cart vendor and police came up to him and said, you are not legally allowed to sell fruit. And he says, I am going to die if I don't make money. And they stopped him and said, no more selling fruit. So he went in front of a government building, set himself on fire in protest, saying, I can't live anymore. I'm done. And this ignited the Tunisian revolution, which I believe sparked the entirety of the Arab Spring. It's spread all across the region. Looking at this map, seeing that the cost of living is about to slam into the average income, this means that people will be working as hard as they possibly can, and they will not be making enough to live. At a certain point after that, a human being says, the only way I can get my resources is through extra legal means. The system has failed. That's a worrying point. I should say we're at a worrying point because this data ends 2023 and we are almost done with 2024. So I can only assume if we extrapolate the data, we may be at the inflection point where people can't afford anymore. I work 40 hours a week and I'm losing money. I'm burning savings. That's why savings is going down. How will I feed my family next year?
Yeah.
It could be simple. Trump wins. Everybody cheers and says, maybe Trump will turn things around. And they're willing to wait for a year, file for government benefits or whatever in the meantime, and see if things turn around. It's possible that Trump turns things around to such a degree that we alleviate any serious crisis.
This is the reality we live with now. And it's funny that I've gone on a lot of podcasts talking about the Civil War. And this is one of those things I really have to hammer into most podcast hosts. And they just don't get it, where most Americans, 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck now. 40% of Americans have less than $400 in savings. 70% have less than $1,000 of savings. And it's something people are completely disconnected to. But the average American can't make it another 4 years because there's no countervening force to this. And when you look at the world, you'll see a measure and you think, what's the pressure against that? Because the pressure against that can often equalize it or push it back. And there's no force in America that's actively pushing against that trend. There's no, because if AI is the big advance I see recently, and AI is not going to help normal Americans. It's
going to make it worse.
Exactly. Yeah.
What we're already seeing with, well, let me put it this way. You cannot live working at Taco Bell.
Yeah.
It's not possible. When I was 18, I worked at O'Hare, and I remember why I quit, because I was in massive debt. I generated about $1,000 in credit card debt because if I wanted to eat to live and have gas to drive to work, I was using my credit cards.
Yeah.
But then when my paycheck would come in, I'd be like, okay, shoes. I have one pair of shoes and they're fried. If I want to buy a pair of shoes, if I want to pay my car insurance, if I want to get my registration, all the things I got to do, my paycheck is down to almost nothing, but I have to eat. And so then looks like gas is coming on the credit card. Then I have to pay the minimum balance on the credit card, but then the balance goes up.
Yeah.
Eventually, after 6-7 months, I worked there for 2 years. It got to a point where I said, I'm working, I was working probably like 40, 50 hours a week. I was picking up extra shifts. I was working overtime and doing doubles trying to make money. And I'm like, unless I work here 80 hours a week, I can't actually pay for gas, buy food, and live. I have no health insurance. I was sleeping on a friend's couch, and I'm like, this is not possible. It's an impossibility. So if you're at Taco Bell right now and you're like, I am working as hard as I can, and no offense, Taco Bell, we like Taco Bell. I'm just saying they don't pay enough. And I think it's government factors that play a role in this. But let's just say you're working a standard entry level minimum wage job. Now they're going to replace you with a kiosk. And they've already done it. The Taco Bell over here, you walk in, it's 4 kiosks.
Yeah.
You walk up and you just go boop, boop, boop. And then there's two guys in the back making the food. They walk up and go, number 54. You don't need a cashier anymore. You just have only a couple of people. They've dramatically reduced the amount of people who have jobs. So now you're going to have an increasing number of people trying to file for benefits. Now we're looking at another equation. The amount of buying power and resources put into the U.S. system, welfare base, is going to become less than the amount of people extracting from it. The deficit will skyrocket. The debt will skyrocket. And then eventually, the people who are working are like, 80% of my revenue is going towards people who don't have jobs. I talked about this a really long time ago pertaining to automation and the dangers of automation. I'm not a Luddite. I think automation is a good thing, but it has to be properly managed. If we get to the point where we say, hey, you don't need fast food workers anymore, let's do UBI. This is a big push that I remember going back to Occupy, where people said we should have universal basic income because automation is replacing a lot of the labor. So now everybody should have a bare minimum access to these things. Yes, that's right. So the guy who lives in the city and no longer works at Taco Bell, but still gets the equivalent of minimum wage at 40 hours a week, is going to be sitting in his living room enjoying life. And thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.